This is our interview with Steve. We really enjoyed our chat, our geek outs, more information about Holy Terror.
Super nice guy.
Great band with Mindwars that he has going on right now. If you haven't checked them out yet, definitely right after this interview, get over there and check it out.
All my burning, itching, swelling questions about Holy Terror have been answered, so check this out.
Yeah.
So, what are your favorite memories from your Holy Terror days?
Yeah. There's a ton. I don't know how much you know about the way the wheels fell off, but there were a lot of dark times,
Yeah.
but there were a lot of great times. I mean, I think one thing that sticks out to me more than anything is how well, when we all got along, how well we all got along.
Yeah.
I mean, from the time Terror and Submission was recorded until just about the ending of the first leg of the US tour in 88 supporting Mindwars, we were all like brothers. The age gap was pretty wide. I was the youngest, and it was either Keith or Floyd were the oldest, and they were 10 years older than me. So that's a pretty big gap when you're younger. When you're older, the 10-year gap's not as big a deal, but when you're younger, it's a little bit different. But what was really unique is I have a sister who's 10 years older than me. And so a lot of our musical tastes were very similar. Yeah. And I think that's what allowed us to really merge our personalities. So I think one of the best memories was just how well we got along. We would all go to Kurt's place. Kurt had it was almost like a full acre in the middle of the San Fernando Valley. And we would all just go there and hang out and party and just, and it like I said, like brothers. One of the other big memories and definitely career highlights was opening 4 shows for Motorhead.
Oh.
We got to open in Northern California, a couple shows, the Santa Monica Civic, and down in Irvine in Southern California. Death Angel was on that bill too, all 4 shows. That was huge. I've been a Motorhead fan since high school, and that was just a complete.
Like, what year was this? Like, about?
I think it was 87. No, 88. It was 88.
Okay, gotcha.
It was December of 88. In fact, I think I saw online today, it was this day in 88 that we played the Santa Monica Civic with Motorhead. I think I saw that today. I think I might have put it on my phone. I think I saved Friday, December 16th, Friday at 7 p.m. in 1988. It was their rock and roll, I think, tour.
Oh, rock
and it was us opening for Motorhead, and then Death Angel was also on that.
Well, then that was still Filthy on drums then, wasn't it?
Yes, I think, it was.
It was. Awesome.
Yeah. And, everybody tells wonderful stories of how kind Lemmy was. They're all true.
Yeah.
For him, when we played the first show, I think it was in Oakland, for him to walk around to each of us and give us a t-shirt. I mean, come on, he didn't owe us anything. And then at Santa Monica, he dedicated Killed by Death to Holy Terror. I mean, it's like, why? This guy is, the godfather of metal, of thrash, really. I mean, they were rock and roll, but he was just a kind person. So that was definitely a highlight. The band formed in 85. And so how old was I in 85? I was 19. And just having that opportunity to play with those guys, because they were Kurt, Floyd, and Joe were seasoned musicians. Kurt and Floyd in Seattle were playing the cover band circuit for a couple years before they came back down to Los Angeles. Yeah. And I was just out of high school, and I was just like some punk kid. But yeah, so I don't know. Those are some of the highlights of my time with Holy Terror.
It always seemed to me like you guys were just a little bit heavier than the other. Like, well, let me just explain. my local record store, we're from Baltimore, and my local record store, I could always tell when a band was a little too heavy by the used copies of their vinyls. You guys had a lot of used copies that were returned. The first Pestilence album, Dark Angel, Darkness Descends, and I was like, okay, the Anthrax people, this is too much for them. You know what I mean? And so I would snatch them up,
Yeah.
$5.99 for the record, you know.
Yeah.
And I always put you guys in there along with like Morbid Saint and even like Hell Witch. Did that affect you guys touring? Did you feel like you were kind of heavier than the mainstream thrash?
Yeah, I think so. And I think part of that for us was we toured with DRI. You know, and
Oh
DRI
wow.
was a punk band. They were starting the crossover,
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
were a punk band. And, you know, one of the things Kurt always said was that our band never got much respect from anybody. And it was kind of true. And maybe that's the case. It was
Yeah.
just, it was too much for some people. You know,
Like
what was
I was
coming.
convinced that you guys, I thought you guys were European for the longest time. Like when I was a young Overkill t-shirt, you know, I was like, oh no, these guys have got to be from the UK or
Yep.
something. They're so dark, but no, American. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And Kurt always said, when I first met him, he said, I want to play Maiden on 78. That's what he was shooting for. And so
Yeah.
we definitely had that sort of, um, we definitely had that new wave of British heavy metal. I mean, so not only did we all like Deep Purple, Sabbath, Zeppelin, you know, came from that era, we also liked the new wave of British heavy metal stuff. Now, and then Joe was sort of the wild card, and Keith, because neither one of those guys knew anything about new wave of British heavy metal or thrash.
Wow.
Joe, when he first tried out for the band, after we parted with Jack Schwartz, Joe's one of his influences was Mahavishnu Orchestra. And I'm
Okay.
like, what the heck? But Kurt was a big Zappa fan, and so was Joe.
Yeah.
And so we just really had a lot of eclectic and different. We weren't really influenced by a lot of US bands. And so maybe
Yeah.
that's where some of that came from as well. I don't know if you've heard anything about Terran Submission, but you know, we had just some no-name engineer. He knew nothing about metal. He knew nothing, let alone thrash.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Kurt wasn't very happy with the mix of that album or anything because the guy didn't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's the deal with the hang on, I remember the name of it. You did where was it? Just bear with me. Okay, yeah. When you did it looks like, and Jack Endino did Shark Chum. And then when you did the
Yes.
El Revenjo, he only did a few songs. He didn't do all of them. Like, what was the story there? Why didn't he do the whole comp?
Yeah, that's a question for Kurt. So when Holy Terror broke up in '89, I lost contact with all those guys for well over a decade.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
And there was this guy, Scott Lambert, who reached out, found me somehow, found Kurt somehow. Well, it was actually this guy, there was actually this guy, Tom Hutchinson, who had, you know, the internet wasn't even really around much in late 90s, early 2000s.
Right,
And this
right.
guy, Tom Hutchinson, had a website that had his three favorite bands. And it was, I think it was Armored Saint, Holy Terror, and some other band. And so this guy, Scott Lambert, saw that, and somehow they got a hold of me, they got a hold of Kurt, and that's really where Kurt and I reconnected. But we only reconnected online through email. And so when he was putting out El Revenjo, I just happened to have digitized all of our VHS video footage from our tour, and I put it to digital, and I said, hey, do you want it for the album? He said, yeah, sure. So I sent it up to him. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened with that. I do know Kurt, somehow this guy Scott ended up with all the tapes from our recordings. And so that could have been part of it too. Maybe Kurt only got some back or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Was it any truth to the story that Kurt almost got in a fight with Dave Mustaine?
Yeah. Yeah. So I know. We opened for Megadeth at the Country Club. And you know, whether it happened or not, Kurt felt that Dave was hitting on his girlfriend, Vicky.
Which he probably was.
And he probably was. And Kurt got
probably was.
pissed off and wanted to kick his ass. And then I remember Kurt said, so we bought a bunch of empty 412 cabinets. So it looked like we had full,
Oh, okay.
10 rows of stacks.
Right,
and so Kurt was pissed. And he said, we're going to load them up and we're going to put them up on stage. I don't care what Dave says, we're going to do it. And so we did. When we opened for them, we had this wall of speaker cabinets because Kurt was so pissed off about it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I have a story about, gosh, I must have been, well, when did Megadeth start? When did
85. He got kicked out of Metallica in 85, right? Yeah.
Okay.
No. 83 was when he got kicked out of Metallica because that was Kill 'Em All.
Yes.
So the Megadeth started
before,
85 was the first album, yeah.
Okay. Yep. So this was before I graduated from high school. So it was either late 83, early 84. And I don't remember how I heard about this, but Dave was looking for guitar players. So I was, 16 maybe, 17 maybe. And my buddy and I drove down to Hollywood. We got off at Gower Street. Dave lived in an apartment. We go up to the apartment, second floor, knock on the door. I don't remember who opened the door. Someone opened the door, and over in the distance, Dave Mustaine's sitting there, and he calls us over, and we walk over, and we sit down, and we chat with him a little bit. We go into his bedroom. He has one of those old-style cassette recorders, and he goes, I want you to hear some of our songs. And so he presses play, and I got to imagine it was what ended up being on Killing Is My Business. I imagine it was those songs. I have no, real memory of that. And he goes, do you think you can play this? I said, yeah, why not? And he goes, okay, we're rehearsing somewhere downtown at like 2 a.m. And I'm thinking to myself, shit, I can't go down there. My mom's not going to let me go down there. I was like, I don't know, I was 16 or 17 years old. And so I never showed up. I'm like, okay, I'll see you there. And so I went home and that was it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That reminds me of Eddie Murphy. He talks about like when he was first starting out, he had a show when he was like a teenager and he bombed and he was supposed to get paid $20 for the show and they wouldn't pay him. So he couldn't get a cab home. So he had to call his father. And the whole ride home, his father's like, all right, Mr. Comedian, you're getting a fucking job tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what that sounds like to me,
Well, that was exactly it because my parents were still together at the time. They divorced, I think the year I graduated, or the year after. And my dad was adamant. I wasn't going to play music. I was going to college.
Yeah.
This was it. And so I was like, okay, I better get home.
That is a great story. That really is. Yeah.
You are such a fabulous guitarist. What made you want to, pick up a guitar in the first place?
Yeah.
So remember I told you my sister's 10 years older than me. Believe it or not, my sister married the boy next door.
Oh, wow.
And so in 1977, my two favorite things were Kiss and baseball. Okay. I thought I was going to be the next Steve Garvey and, play for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And my sister, then boyfriend, now husband, took me to see Kiss on the Alive 2 Love Gun tour at the Forum. And my jaw dropped. I got home that night. The next day, I told my mom, I said, Mom, I want to learn how to play the guitar. Yeah. That is what inspired me to start playing. They were larger than life. I was 11. And it just, how impressed was that for me? Oh, yeah. And that's what did it for me. And then my all-time favorite guitarist, I'm a diehard Zeppelin fan. I love everything Jimmy Page has done. But for some reason, I've always loved the taste of Michael Schenker. Okay. So he's really my favorite guitar player. That's why I use the wah pedal a lot. It's not Kirk Hammett, but that's why he uses it a lot too.
Yeah, but
because Michael Schenker used it.
Michael Schenker's interviews are great because he's a little,
Oh yeah, he's
Yeah,
a lot.
I love interviews with Michael Schenker. Like if a magazine says Michael Schenker interview like nowadays interview, I'm buying it because
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
he's still angry at Rudy for the liner notes of Love Drive. I mean, it's
Yep.
2024,
I know. It's
crazy.
it is crazy. It is crazy.
Anyway, yeah.
We went to see Schenker play. This was me and some buddies. Gosh, I don't remember how many years ago, but it was a work night, right? So you got to get up early to go to work the next day. He didn't hit the stage until after 1 a.m.
Oh my God.
He just, I'm sure he was drunk. He
Of
just
course.
dragged it out. We didn't get home because this was in Ventura, which is like an hour and a half from the San Fernando Valley where I was living. I mean, I didn't get home till like 4 in the morning or whatever, and, get up by 6 the next day. But that, it's Michael Schenker. I couldn't leave.
Yeah. Well, to me, the funny part of the whole thing is that Rudy has gotten over the fact that UFO stole him from the Scorpions. That's fine. But he's
Right.
still mad about the liner notes on Love Drive.
No. Yeah.
I don't know.
Wild.
What are you gonna do? It's crazy. Yeah.
So we've been spinning a lot of Mind Wars. We got these new microphone stands, and I think they're better, but they get a little wonky.
Yeah.
I actually could hear
good.
a lot of your vocal delivery. It reminded me of Dave, a little kind of Megadeth. Who do you get compared to most often, and do you agree or disagree with those?
Yeah, I hear some of the Dave Mustaine. I don't get that a lot. What I mostly get is Alice Cooper.
Okay.
And, my very first metal album, if we want to call Alice Cooper metal,
Sure.
I was in the 2nd grade. My dad was working for Capitol Records, I think it was. And for whatever reason, he gives me $1 Billion Babies when I'm in 2nd grade.
Oh, wow.
So yes, Kiss got me to want to be, but that's what started my path and the corruption in my brain, I think, from music. I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit on that album.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's Alice Cooper is probably the most.
Well, I mean, Alice has written a couple books, but the really good book about Alice Cooper is by Shep Gordon. Because Shep Gordon, as the manager, he tells stories about how he figured out that it wasn't good enough to be on the cover of the music magazine. You had to be on the cover of the newspaper. Like you want to be in the music news, you want to be in the news.
Right.
So Shep Gordon's book is great. Like the manufactured situations that he would do to create outrage. Great stuff. Yeah.
I should read that. Yeah, that's
hard to believe in today's world, but like he would set up like he would make sure that like a billboard on the back of a truck with Alice naked with a snake wrapped around him would break down in the middle of Times Square at just the right time. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Like he calculated all that shit.
Yeah.
What Knocked Loose, what just happened with them when they went on, I love them. And when they went on Jimmy Kimmel and people were outraged that he had that kind of act on. I was like, hello, did you see who opened up for the Olympics this year? Hello.
Yeah.
Exactly.
People don't want their feathers ruffled,
But I think in the end, it's good news for them. It's press.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
But I appreciate the comparison to Mustaine because, I do, I'm not a vocalist, right? I mean, I've only been doing this for, I guess Mindwars has been together for 11 years now. So I guess I've been doing it that long, but I never fancied myself. I'm starting to feel like one now. I'm starting to feel like I can at least write vocal melodies different than the way I write guitar.
Yeah. I mean, Dave never planned to sing. Lemmy never planned to sing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
So I love we've got your cover up behind. I love it. What was the significance?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, at first when you see it, you're like, it's a V, okay? But then when you look close and you see all the demons burning in hell, it's great.
Hell or demons or both?
So if you've looked for our catalog, there's the cover is incorporated in that. Every cover is incorporated into that V.
Wow.
Nice. Okay.
Now, usually that would indicate, right? Because didn't like, I think Metallica did a great, or not Metallica, Iron Maiden did a greatest hits, and they had different eddies from all the different albums or
Right.
something like
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yeah.
I think that's usually what people do. So our very first album, and I don't know why I came up with this, but I had this idea of a guy, some person that was trapped in this sort of what we are dealing with social media now. It wasn't social media at the time because it was 2013. I guess it could have been social media, but just trapped and stuck in devices. And so our drummer Robbie, he says, well, what are you going to call this guy? Is he going to be the band mascot? And I'm like, sure. I said, let's call him Wally. And he's like, well, why Wally? Well, my favorite movie of all time is Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
And if you ever seen that, Marlon Brando's character was Walter Kurtz. And so that's how I came up with Wally. And this Wally character sat on every single album except for the fourth one. We sort of broke free of that character. And if you look at the fourth album, The Fourth Turning,
I like the cover on that album a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy who did that, but I can't remember his name, but he was the only one that did something different for us too. But if you look at the building, right, it's sort of the end of the world. If you look at the building, the lights in the middle buildings spell out the end.
Oh, cool.
And it was sort of a double thought, right? I mean, because we were just going into the pandemic. It was our fourth album, and we got a little bit of traction, but we weren't doing a whole lot. This was before we played True Thrash Fest in Japan. It was for what we just did this year. I thought it was going to be the ending of Mindwars too. And so that's kind of, I hid that in there sort of subliminally. And at that time, we also brought in Rick Zaccaro, our new bass player. So the band was sort of changing. And I think when I decided for this album cover, I wanted to incorporate everything because it really is the culmination of everything we've started with till now. This album sounds way different than I think anything else. You can still tell it's Mindwars, but it's sort of different. And I wanted to say, put a stamp on this to say that 5 is sort of our next, progression into wherever we're going to go. If we go anywhere. I'm assuming we're going to do a 6th, and I'll have to come up with something different for that album, but we'll see. But we're sort of putting to rest the past of Mindwars and looking to the future. And that's sort of what my thought process was with this album cover.
So when I look up your discography online on Metal Archives, are you torn as a 3-piece now? Like, because some albums have 3 members, some have 4, but then you have guitar harmonies. Like, it's confusing,
It is very confusing. So when we started, Robbie and I met in 1989 when Holy Terror was touring with Exodus and Nuclear Assault in Europe.
Okay.
And Robbie and I met in Milan. And, we hit it off because my mom's family is from Calabria and he's from Calabria. So we sort of hit it off, we were paisans or whatever.
Right.
And we lost course, right? We lost touch through all of the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s. And we reconnected on Facebook. So if there's anything that's positive about Facebook, it's that if it wasn't for Facebook, who knows what would have happened. And, I was in Los Angeles. He was in Torino. And he asked me, do you have any music? And I said, yeah, I got some MP3 files. And so I sent him a bunch of MP3s that I had just recorded in my bedroom on GarageBand. And he put some drums to them. And so I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. And he goes, let's put a band together. And I said, how are we going to do that? I'm in Los Angeles. You're in Torino. He's like, hey, I know a guy, Danny Peasy. He plays guitar, but he wants to play bass for us. And I said, okay. He goes, do you know anybody else? I said, no. I go, I know some people, but not anybody that would probably be interested. And he goes, okay, it'll just be the three of us. And I said, well, who's going to sing? And he said, you are. And I'm like, okay, so I'll sing. So the three of us, they came out in 2014, the end of 20, played a few shows in Los Angeles. I think they came out again in 2015. We went into Arizona a little bit. We played Las Vegas. We played San Diego out in 2016, and the three of us played some shows in Italy. We played in Eden. And 2017, Robbie decided to relocate to Los Angeles, to Newport Beach. And Danny's still in Italy. And so we're like, oh, well, what are we going to do now? We want to play live more frequently. We can't without, with Danny in Italy. And so that's when we brought in Rick. And we said, okay, Danny, you could now move to guitar. And so that was really the intent. And he was then going to move out here, but he never did. And so, yes, to the long-winded answer is we are touring as a three-piece. Rick Zaccaro on bass, Robbie Viteri on drums, and me on guitar and vocals. Okay. I've always been in two guitar bands. Of course. I love Maiden. I love Priest. I love Metallica.
And Lizzie.
I love that two guitar sound.
Yeah.
Thin Lizzy, all of that. And so I write that way. And so I play the harmonies. So obviously it's way stripped down when we play live. We still put a powerful punch, but it's definitely stripped down. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you're a three-piece, you can play a little, play around a little bit with the, you got the, the bass is a lot more prominent. There's a lot of there's great three-piece bands out there that, Motorhead.
Definitely. Motorhead, right? I mean, well, for the longest time.
Thin Lizzy with Eric Bell, so yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Which that shit is crazy. Have you ever tried to learn any of that stuff?
Oh my God.
Like Vagabonds or Look What the Wind Just Blew. I mean, it's it's crazy.
Yeah, it is so intricate. Yeah.
Brian Downey is just all over the place.
Just all over the place. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. Nobody ever talks about those early, the Eric Bell, Thin Lizzy, but that stuff is like space signals to me. I mean,
my gosh. Yeah. 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 And it's interesting because that's another one that, Thin Lizzy got popular, but they never made it to that next huge level.
Yeah. Brian Robertson was an asshole. I mean,
yeah.
Every single time they lined it up, he screwed it up for him.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Yep. Maybe that's why Lemmy got rid of him too, right?
Oh, those stories are great. But I mean, how great is that album with Another Perfect
I
Day?
know.
That might be the best Motorhead album of all.
It's such a great album.
It's
such
so
a great
good.
album.
I mean, Robertson, as great as he was on that, he couldn't wait to shoot himself in the foot as soon as the tour came around.
I know.
And you know what? We've all had friends like that. That's the thing, right? Like when you read the stories, you're like, you can almost predict what he's going to do. Like,
what's going to happen?
Fucking ballerina slippers. Yep. I know a guy that would have fucking done that shit.
Dolphin short.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, I had a few track specific questions about this one. I love The Road to Madagascar. We had it on in the car the other day. And that when you guys hit that groove and it's like Robbie's a beast.
That one riff.
Oh my God, that repeats. That can go on for 20 minutes.
Please play this for 10 minutes. Yes, that riff. Yes, it's so great. Yeah.
We actually play it live. And believe it or not, in January, right before we started recording the album, it wasn't even going to be on the album. It wasn't even in my head. It's sort of it's kind of an emotional story. So I never knew this, but there was something called the Madagascar Plan that Hitler had, where he was going to send all the Jews to Madagascar. Well, so how I learned this in Simi Valley, which is a small little town in Southern California, just adjacent to Los Angeles, they have the Reagan Library. And they had the Holocaust exhibit. And so I went to see the Holocaust exhibit. It was such an emotional exhibit. I mean, everybody knows about the Holocaust, but I learned so many things that I had never known.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that stuck out to me was this Madagascar plan. And so I remember getting home that night and that opening riff just came to me. I have no idea. And I wrote out the whole song. I sent it to Rick and Robbie. They're like, well, this is great. Well, do you have lyrics? And I said, no, I don't have lyrics. And I don't know that I want lyrics. Yeah. And so Robbie goes, okay, just do it as an instrumental. He goes, what are you going to call it? And I said, The Road to Madagascar. And so that's kind of how that came out. It was, I've always had riffs rattling around in my brain. And, some are good and some are shit. And, I look to others to tell me what's shit. And I kind of know when it's good, but not always. Sometimes other people have to tell me, no, that really is good, Mike. I'm like, are you sure? And Robbie goes, that one has to be on the album. And same with Rick. And Robbie wanted to open the record with that. And Rick said, no, we can't have an instrumental open. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so we put it, I don't know what it's like, third or fourth on the track listing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good showcase, for all the instruments. I mean, it's absolutely got some jaw-dropping moments.
Yeah. I made the mistake of I was a German major in college, right? And I continued to take it because I was getting good grades in the class and the language I thought was easier than English. But then I started learning German history. And then my parents would start to tell stories about what they thought happened in the Holocaust. And I would be like, it's so much worse than that. And I'll never tell you because I had to learn it. As a German major, you learn all the history, all the way from Bismarck, all the way through communism, everything.
Right. And this is being put into your head. I know.
The only thing that kind of saved me was the classes were all in German. So you were not allowed to speak English at all. So it was always a little fuzzy. I would be like, did they really rip their fillings out? Is that what I'm hearing? Well, I'm not sure. That can't be that bad. Yes, it was that bad. Yes, they ripped out their gold fillings and melted them into bars. Yes, it was so bad. Yeah.
It is crazy.
Horrible.
Are you a Rush fan?
Oh, God, so much, yes.
So have you read Geddy Lee's book?
I'm halfway through it. There's a lot in there about his parents and being Jewish.
Yeah.
And when it was his father died, I guess, and then the lack of support.
Yeah.
It's a little
heavy.
darker than I wasn't expecting. I kind of wanted to hear about how we rode hemispheres, frankly.
Right.
But it's a lot.
Exactly.
I don't know, I'm sure that's bad to say, but yeah.
No, I know. I mean, I wasn't expecting it either. And then when you get towards the end, he talks about Neil, and that was hard too. It's a pretty emotional book. I was fortunate enough. He did a book tour. And I went to see him in Los Angeles on the book tour, which was cool. And Jack Black was the interviewer. So it was great. It was hysterical.
It is, yeah.
Speaking of Rush, Beneath the Trees kind of reminded me of that whole thing with the trees, the warring trees.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if that kind of had anything to do with that, the war to save the trees and.
Yep, it is. It has to do with that, and it also has to do with Lord of the Rings. If you remember, I don't know if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, but the Ents, right? When they go to war, they march through. Those are the two things that song. Yeah. So you're good. You're good. She's really good.
Isn't she? She is. Yeah.
Yeah, but I kept, when I was listening to it at first, I kept thinking it was called Rise Up. And I'm like, wait, where am I missing this? And then I'm like, oh, you dork.
Well, there's a cross section there, right? Rush has the Necromancer and.
Yeah.
There's Tolkien / Rush. There's crossroads there.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
We can tie it all together.
Just like with Zeppelin.
No, I was just going to say, from the darkest depths of Mordor, I found a girl so fair. That's all I was going to say.
Absolutely. That's the Ramble On. I said, that's the song I want my funeral for me. That's my favorite Zeppelin song. But the rise up are the trees, right? The trees rising, to go to war.
Trees. Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
When they- And also, for Stand at the Gates of Your Mind, it seems like it's about like anxiety or like some kind of internalized thing, or what are you guarding your mind from?
Yeah. You hit another one, the nail on the head. I try to write my lyrics open enough so people can interpret any way they want. But I definitely think this album, more than before, I really tried to focus. As a society, we treat mental illness very well, and we stigmatize it. And my wife is a special ed teacher, so she deals with a lot of in the elementary grade, and she deals with a lot of kids that have Asperger's and autism and just all sorts of stuff. And so I've been listening over the past maybe 5 years to a lot of Stoic philosophy. I've been reading. I bought Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and it's really to protect. You're in charge of your emotions, right? You're in charge of whether or not you're going to respond negatively or positively. And so the whole idea behind Stand Guard at the Gates of Your Mind, you control that. Just try to block out the negative feelings and things like that. So that's kind of where I was going. It's a little more deep than you wanted to get to, but it's kind of, that's where I was thinking.
The lyrics in this form of music they're better than a lot of dark novels. They absolutely are.
Absolutely.
And they don't get nearly enough credit for it either.
No, they don't. They don't.
Yeah.
I mean, some of Geezer's lyrics were incredible. Geezer Butler was one of the best lyricists around.
How about him? How about that old footage of him live? How animated he is. I mean, he is just going off. I mean,
yeah,
just
beyond belief.
Yeah. So,
And
I remember when they got inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and everybody was sitting at different tables. Like, I wanted to cry. I was like,
right,
this is the greatest heavy band of all time.
Of all time.
And of course, I blamed all of it on Sharon, which is probably the reason. I was like, get her out of there. Okay. All right. So we play a game on the show. Okay. It's called Blaspheming Monikers. Okay. And it's a simple game. Here's how it goes. So there's 5 band names in front of me. One of them is fake. So I'm going to ask you to try to guess which one of these is not a real band. Okay.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Okay. All right. Volcanic War. Incantation War. I'm sorry. Let's try that again. All right. Number 1, Volcanic War. 2, Invocation War. 3, Arachnid War. 4, Alcoholic War. And 5, A Horse Called War. And which one of those sounds like a fake band name?
So, right off the top of my head, A Horse Called War sounds like can't be. It's got to be real because it's so bizarre. And I know there's a lot of bands that worship alcohol, so I can't choose that one. We played when we played with a band called End All, and every single one of their songs is about beer. So it can't be that one. I think it's was the third one. What was the third one?
Arachnid War.
Arachnid War. Yeah. I mean, as much as I love the song Black Widow by Alice Cooper, I'm going to say it's Arachnid War.
Oh, very good. You got it.
Did I get it?
Look at it, right out of the blocks. Look at you. Yeah. Yeah. All the others are real. Volcanic is Japanese black metal. Invocation is thrash from California. Alcoholic War is from Brazil. And A Horse Called War is UK sludge. So there you go. Excellent job.
I mean, that was just too bizarre to be fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that made me think of like that scene in Harry Potter when all the
yeah.
I think Arachnid. I do think Arachnid War would be a cool name for a band, though. We are.
It would be a good name. Yeah.
Yeah, cool name. Yeah, and the logo potential.
I had a high school band. I called a high school band Black Widow. because I loved Alice Cooper's Welcome to My Nightmare album.
Well, wasn't Alice Cooper's original band like something spider related? What were they called before
I
they
think
were
so.
Alice?
I think it was, yeah.
When they were in Phoenix, they were called like, because I remember the logo had like legs or something.
So I had one other question. What is the eighth wonder?
Yeah.
That's a great one too. Now, do I want to tell you what my eighth wonder is? Or do you want to keep that as you figure out what your eighth wonder is? So this song went through quite a few iterations. And it was sort of three separate parts that I merged together. I look at the eighth wonder as, I mean, now I look at it a little differently than when I wrote it. I look at it as social media and the internet, as that they're making those people, the tech giants, are making billions off of our personal information, right? I mean, we're willingly giving it to them. We're taking pictures of our food, and we're doing these live interviews and putting it online, and we're putting pictures of our kids and our family and our pets and our whatever. But we're giving them all of that information, and they're not stealing it, but they're making billions off of us. And so they're the vultures of this eighth wonder. And that's kind of what I was thinking when I wrote that song.
I was kind of hoping we would have put up a little bit more of a fight for our personal information instead of just being like, here you go. My favorite yogurt flavor is cherry. Absolutely. Like I would have thought that we would have been like, well, what are you going to do for me? But none of us did. Yep. We just handed it over.
Yep. Well, and I'm as guilty as the next person. We're all waiting for that like. The more likes you get, you're hoping more people are watching, which is a good thing. You're trying to create a community. But, what I would like is someone to come up with music book and only allow people on that platform that like music or play music. And that's all you can discuss. There's no discussing of politics. There's no discussing of anything unless the music, goes that direction. But, and it's just that. And if you're not in that world, then you can't come in. But that's just.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The question should be like, who replaced Richie Blackmore in Deep Purple? And you should be, you got 5 seconds. Tommy Bolin? Yeah. You're in. It should be like a Jedi council. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So it looks like you guys are going to be headed back to Japan.
Yes.
So wow. What was your experience there like?
I hang my head just because of the sheer exhaustion, but it was amazing. Quite frankly, like I said, I was thinking the band was just going to fade away. But Mickey, who puts on True Thrash Fest, when he asked us to play, we thought, this is a great opportunity for us. And I honestly believe if we didn't play that, we wouldn't have got asked to play Storm Crusher. And if we didn't play Storm Crusher, I don't think we would have got signed to High Roller Records. So I think, the ball is at least rolling in the right direction.
Yeah.
Japan was amazing. The people were so gracious. The people were so kind. Jero, who's putting on this 3, maybe it's 4 shows. I think we're doing 4 shows. He coordinated with Robbie, or Robbie coordinated with him. He plays in a band called Abigail, which is pretty big.
Oh, I know them. Yeah.
Yeah. And when he asked us to come out, we're like, sure, let's do it. And it's a long slog for 4 shows, but why not, right? And they were kind enough to ask us to come back, and least we can do is return the favor. And what's interesting is, the culture is so different. Nobody looks at each other on the subway, on their trains. You do not make eye contact. I tried to give this elderly woman my seat. She would not have any of it. I mean, we were packed in. I think it was Shinjuku, which is like one of the busiest train stops in the world.
Yeah.
And I was sitting down on our way there or on our way out of there, whatever. And I saw her and I stood up. She would have nothing. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we interviewed Donnie from Riot, and he said that they basically couldn't get arrested in the U.S. like in like the late 80s. And they went to Japan and they were shaking the limousine like the Beatles. Yeah, crazy. I mean, they love rock and roll out there. They love it.
They do. They really do. And I guess it makes sense, right? I mean, they're an island.
Yeah.
And I think the island is about the size of our East Coast, and that's about it. There's not a lick of trash anywhere. The streets are spotless, and there's no trash cans. But we went into like I think it was a Starbucks or whatever, got a cup of coffee, and we're done. And we're like, okay, what do we do with our cups? And Jero, the guy with us, he goes, oh, you bring it back to the hotel and throw it out. I'm like, okay. So I folded it up, put it in my pocket. It's just what you do.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like my son married a girl from Nepal. So they went there for like a month, like in October. And he said it was so weird because, it's very small towns where she's from. And every single person wanted to talk to him and come in my house and eat rice. And after he said, oh, you'd been there a certain couple of days, he's like, oh my God, I'm going to go nuts if I have to go in. And then, or he just wanted to go out to get coffee. But when he expressed that, because he's a guest in that house, they're like, oh no, we'll go get it for you. He's like, no, I want to go out.
Right. I want to walk.
Yeah. Well, when I first met her, she said she was from Nepal, and I censored all my Indiana Jones jokes because I was like, what is it all like rope bridges and shit? And you know what? It is exactly like Indiana Jones in real life. It's long rope bridges. Nepal is exactly the way it looks in that movie for real.
Wild.
The picture she sends me, I'm like, I wouldn't go across that. That looks very unstable.
And there's some guy with like 3 packs stacked high. It's like, oh my God.
He's riding a yak or something. Yeah. It's exactly what you think it is in Nepal.
Right. That's wild. That is so wild.
Well, we hope one day to get you out to Baltimore.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Thank you for answering all our Holy Terror nerd questions. Yeah.
Absolutely. I thank you for asking. I mean, I did this not with the intention, to do much of anything, but, I feel so thankful when people are interested and they appreciate the music that I've been involved in. So I really do appreciate it. It's just hard in the US. So hard. We've been trying to get on different festivals and things, and it's not clicking yet, but we're not going to give up. We're starting to feel the momentum a little bit. So we'll see. Maybe we'll be on the East Coast one day.
You got to start doing the Paul Di'Anno thing. Formerly of Iron Maiden. You got to do the formerly of Holy Terror. Like
I want to do that, but I also don't want to do that because I don't want to disrespect the legacy of Holy Terror.
Yeah, of course.
Because we were asked to play, what was it? I think Headbangers Open Air Festival or something like that, whatever that big festival is in Europe, but they wanted us to play Holy Terror set. And I'm like, we could play a few songs, but there's no way I can't. We're one guitar band, and I'm not Keith Dean, so,
This is the Snaggletooth Extreme Metal Podcast.